Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. Um, I didn't plan to watch this movie. It was actually someone else's choice in our movie group. There was actually two movies the group was gonna watch today. I missed the first one though, because I was watching a movie and I was trying to finish it. I wish I could have watched the movies I watched today in like a completely different order. Like I watched West Side Story this morning, the remake of it, and my friends were watching the movie Frogman, and I didn't get to it in time because I was trying to finish the movie Love Bites and finish my review of that. And then by the time I hopped on, the group was about to start watching Good Boy, so I joined in for that and I got to see the whole thing. And I wish Good Boy could have been the first or the second movie I watched today, and having, or even just having like Good Boy first and then Love Bites at the end, but it wouldn't have worked out that way. Frogman I'm mentioning because my friends said they enjoyed it, and I saw that it was on Tubi, and that's a service I have, so I'll probably watch Frogman. I'll have to watch it by myself, but that's okay. I'll probably watch Frogman at some point soon if I have time, and if I have opinions on it, I'll do a review of it. So it'll work out for me. I'll see. That's the only movie I missed in the movie group. Good Boy, let me talk about the poster at least. I really like the design of this poster. I think it looks cool, of these like kind of shadowy arms, but also all this kind of shadow around the dog a little bit. I just think it's a really cool poster. In terms of horror movies, I don't really know what this would be called exactly. Whatever it is, it's not a type I really watch that much. I've been kind of tapping my toes a little bit into like horror as a genre, I guess, but I've mostly been going for like thrillers and stuff, or like older movies, like I did a couple reviews of, and that I've been enjoying, or I kind of like psychological horror. But this was really well made. I want to just start off with that. Like, the way they try to scare you and how they do it, I was very impressed by, especially because the thing with this movie is the main character is this dog, Indy, and you see Indy's perspective, like literally, not just like, you know, he's on screen, sometimes you see through his POV, but the camera, where the camera is also at the level of where a dog's eye level would be, you know. So imagine being like really, really small and close to the ground, and that, I feel like, adds a whole new perspective, really. I think that was a very creative way to do some more scares. It also, because you're following this dog's POV and where the camera is, it means the humans, they're important, but they're not as involved. A lot of the time, you don't really see their faces, you just see their hands and feet up until a certain point in the movie where the main human, the dog's owner, finally does get involved with the plot and with the scary stuff going on. This movie was scary. I watched this with my friends. It was like me and like 4 or 5 other people. It was really interesting because I haven't really watched horror movies with this group. I'm sure the group, you know, before I joined has probably checked some out. Actually, I did watch Candyman. We did watch a couple horror movies. I forgot about that together. But not anything like this so far, at least with me there. And it was interesting because normally people are chatting and we're making jokes about stuff, but with this movie, everyone was really quiet unless there was a scare, and you could actually audibly hear people jump or get startled, which I think made it a bit more scary. But also, sometimes we would talk about stuff like our conversations were light at the beginning. I was making a joke about like, oh, so it's like live action Courage the Cowardly Dog then, and then sometimes things would pop up on screen and we'd pretend it's like a monster from Courage the Cowardly Dog. But that didn't that vibe didn't last very long, and after a while it was just complete silence because we were so focused on the movie. I felt very anxious watching it personally. I'm not really good with jump scares. It's why I try to avoid horror movies, honestly. I'm kind of a baby when it comes to jump scares, and I feel like with some movies I can tell when they're coming, or when things are slow or the camera's not really moving or something, so I'll kind of mute the volume. I didn't completely mute the volume, but I would turn it down just a tad when I thought something scary would come up, and that helps. Not saying that movies, like something can't be scary, like something jumps out to get you or you notice something or whatever without sound. That does make it a interesting perspective. But I think that kind of helped me. But I still had the sound on, also because I needed to hear my friends. And I still got scared by stuff. There was, I think, at least like 2 times where I did actually kind of jump. I think especially with the first scare. Because the thing is, the movie does have jump scares, but those don't actually start right away. It takes kind of a while into the movie for those to start. So when it finally does come, you're like, and what I like with this movie is it isn't all like jump scares and stuff. Like there's definitely a couple or a thing like pops up on screen or whatever. I mean, that's what a jump scare is, but still. But it's a kind of scariness I find interesting, and honestly what makes the movie more scary to me, or these type of movies, is when it's something that's like in the corner of your eye, or what this movie seems to love to do is have something that'll appear in the background just for like a second, and then it leaves you questioning. And that's probably how the dog is feeling as well, I don't know, of like, was it really there at all? Did you just imagine it? There's a lot of stuff like that in this movie. There's specifically this kind of like shadowy, mud covered monster of sorts, but it mostly looks like a shadow. It's like a humanoid shaped shadow that will appear, that will be all the way in like the background or something, or pop up in a window, to the point where the person who was having control of the movie would go back a little bit, and we were all fine with that, of being like, oh wait, did we see something? Did you see that, guys? That was actually most of what we were talking about through the movie. It was either like we were getting scared, or someone would point out a detail, and there's a lot of really good details in this. Like there's this part when the main human character, I think his name's Todd, he goes to the hospital, and he's talking to a doctor, and you look over on the monitor in the hospital, and the shadowy figure is there, but the shadowy figure is moving in a sort of weird way. There's just details like that where it's like you could be focused on one section of the screen and something else is going on the other section of the screen. Or especially there's a lot of times when it doesn't switch to the next scene, the camera just sort of lingers, but it's lingering in the same spot, and you think like, okay, there's going to be something. So it's more so you're trying to just stare at it and see. It's less thinking of like, oh, here's a jump scare or whatever, which sometimes, yes. But it was more so of, okay, there's going to be something. It's almost kind of like a puzzle, or like being a detective watching this movie, where you're looking to see, was there something there? Or did you notice this thing? And I think that's kind of cool. I feel like that helps me become more interested in the movie. I feel like I don't completely understand the story. I feel like I would definitely need a second viewing, and I was very tempted to like look on Wikipedia or like YouTube or Reddit or whatever and see like, okay, what is it I'm not understanding? Because I feel like I didn't understand a lot. But for the purposes of this video, and because this is me talking about my experience watching this movie for the first time, I decided not to look up anything and just kind of go more into my own thoughts and how I was understanding things and stuff. That being said, I might not get things correctly, because things kind of would just happen and I'm like, wait, is it this or whatever? Yeah, because it's about this dog and his owner, and they live in this house that's kind of just, they don't have like neighbors or anything, and the owner, like I said, I think his name is Todd. There's very few characters in this movie. There's 2 dog characters, sort of, and a couple of humans, and that's it. It's a very small cast, and most of the time in this movie you're following the dog's perspective. So Todd, you see at the beginning, he, I think, is like really sick or dying or something. I don't remember if they say what his illness is. I thought it was cancer, but you see throughout the movie he's coughing a lot and there's blood coming off and stuff. Or like at one point he goes to a hospital and they say like you should have come in earlier. You're too sick and we can't treat you. So the owner is seriously ill. That's already stressful already. But throughout the movie, the dog Indy is seeing. Actually, wait, hold on. Oh, it says starring Indy as, or in Good Boy. I thought the dog was named Indy. Yeah, no, because in the credits, I think it said Indy as himself. So I'm assuming that the in-universe movie dog is also named Indy. Yeah. So Indy is seeing this like shadowy figure that later on in the movie kind of looks like it's just covered in mud. And it keeps popping up around the house and eventually outside. Sometimes it does try to interact with Indy. There's one point that was kind of scary. I got worried for Indy's safety where Indy is chained to a doghouse and the monster appears in the doghouse and is pulling the chains and pulling Indy into the doghouse. That was kind of spooky. Or sometimes it would just kind of show up in the house or whatever. Or there's this one part where Indy ends up jumping out of a window. No, not out of a window. That does happen, but there's one part where Indy jumps out of a window the first time it happens and lands in these bushes and you don't hear anything and you think, oh my gosh, the dog break his legs or something. And then you see there's a window in the background and the monster is inside of the house and now Indy's outside and has to figure out how to get inside. So there's like additional stresses in this movie as well because the main character is a dog, and I think it's interesting having a dog protagonist where you don't know really what he's thinking. I mean, you could tell what he's feeling for sure. There's parts where he's like whimpering or barking and stuff, and the parts when he's obviously scared makes me really sad. I mean, I've always liked animals, but now that I have a dog, I've had a dog for like the past 7 years now, but now that I have a dog, it means whenever I see a dog in a movie that is in distress, it makes me even more stressed because I keep thinking about my own pup. Actually, when I finished this movie, I felt, and I'm still feeling it a little bit, I felt stressed watching this. And that stress didn't really go away when I finished the movie. I told my friends when we were done and we were past the credits, I said I'm still, the stress is lingering a bit, but also because it's a movie about a dog that's also stressed out, I was saying I need to go and find my dog. I don't care if it's 11 p.m. I mean, I know where she is and stuff. She's downstairs. So I literally like got off the Discord call and I went downstairs and my dog was just there. I don't think she was asleep, and I went over and I just pet her for a little bit. It made me feel better that seeing the dog protagonist in this movie go through these situations and be scared and stuff made me think like, oh, I need to go give my dog a hug. It's kind of one of those things like you watch a movie about like parents or someone being sick or whatever, and if you have someone in your life that's like that, you think like, wow, I need to go and like give my mom a call or something to say hi. It's kind of like that for me. I have a friend that's also in the movie group who doesn't have any pets. He commented on that, and then I was thinking like, I wonder what his perspective is of what, like me and a couple other people were like, okay, we should probably go and check on our pet, not like they're in danger or whatever, but just that feeling of like, I need to give my own animal comfort. So I'm wondering from that person's perspective who doesn't have that, of what it's like watching the dog movie and stuff. I mean, it makes me wonder if I would feel differently about this movie if I didn't have a dog myself. I feel like I'd still empathize with the main character and feel bad for him, but I feel like it would have less of an impact, because this is a movie specifically about like a pet dog. It's not like a dog that's out in the wilderness or something. I feel confused about the humans, and I feel confused about the the story, which I don't know if I'll look up to explain it or whatever, because there's the owner Todd, there's Vera, who I don't know if is like the girlfriend or the wife, but you hear her every once in a while, and she goes to find Indy at the end. The ending was something I also felt confused about. There's an old man character who I think is like Todd's grandfather. You see him, you see throughout the movie, there's like these messages on a TV, these like old recordings and stuff. I know I had the volume kind of lowered a bit sometimes during the movie because I was scared, so that probably caused me to miss some important dialogue. And then there's also someone who I think might be a neighbor or something, who's like this hunter, who I was kind of worried about this character of, is he going to do something to the dog? Because he has a couple of encounters with Indy, but then he's not really in the movie anymore, so I don't know. And then the ending is weird too. Like throughout the movie I was wondering, like, okay, what is the shadow monster? I assumed it was supposed to represent something. At first I was thinking for some reason it was like supposed to be the grandfather or something, as you keep seeing him throughout these like recordings and stuff. And then I thought, oh, is it the owner? Is it the illness the owner's dealing with? I'm still not sure. But then once I got to the end, I was thinking, okay, maybe it's death. There's like a theme of death throughout the movie. Sort of early on, you see there's another dog running around that looks like Indy. I don't think it's the same breed, who has this red handkerchief around its neck. And then later on you see that dog's skeleton, or I'm assuming it's that specific dog's skeleton because it has a red handkerchief. And from there I was thinking, like, is that dog Indy? Is Indy going to die? Is it... I was wondering as I was watching the movie, once the second dog was on the screen, like, is Indy and the owner, are they already dead? Is it that it's like a time travel thing of like the first dog failed and now the second one needs to try again? I was thinking of all these things. I don't know which it is. At the end I felt kind of confused because it ends with Indy is in this like little cave thing, and there's the skeleton of the other dog that's outside, and Vera, the girlfriend or whatever, she comes by and she sees it, freaks out, and I thought, but Indy is standing behind it, and I thought, can she not see him? Is it... I was worried, like, oh my gosh, please don't have it be that he's like actually dead, that we've been like following around his ghost, and he's been like a skeleton the whole time and he's just being discovered. But then she calls to him, and the actual dog, you know, goes up and is with her. So I think he's okay. I think he's alive. The entire movie I was worried, like, is the dog, the main character, going to die? And then you have this stuff with his owner too. I don't know how I feel about the owner, where he, on one hand, he seems like kind of an asshole, and he's mean to Indy sometimes, but at the same time it's like he's suffering from this disease the whole movie, and it is kind of his fault it gets as bad as it does, where he doesn't go in early enough for treatment, and then he can't get treatment anymore, and he knows he's going to die. But at the same time, I'm quoting one of my friends on this, actually, of oh gosh, I don't know if I'm gonna get the wording right. It was like, Indy cares about his owner and goes through a lot to try to help him. And I didn't like the owner originally, but seeing Indy care made me care, you know? And I felt like that for other characters too, where there's like a character I don't like and a main character I do like, but you see, it's something about seeing people struggle trying to like help their loved ones that makes you want to root for them and hope that their loved one is okay, even if it's someone you have a completely different opinion about, you know, that, if that makes sense. What else? But yeah, the hunter character I was confused about. Same with the grandfather. At this time, I think the shadowy creature might... The reason I'm thinking it's maybe the disease or the owner or something, rather than like a supernatural figure, like it's supposed to be some kind of like metaphor maybe, is part of the ending, is that Indy and his owner, they end up in like this cave, and the owner gets covered in all this mud, and I was thinking, oh, you're resembling the shadow creature. At first I was thinking is the owner becoming the monster? Is this some kind of like time loop situation where the owner becomes the monster and it's what's chasing around the dog throughout the movie? But if the shadowy creature is maybe supposed to be death coming for the owner and stuff, which I feel like could make the poster make sense, because when I originally saw the poster, I thought, oh, it's these monsters and they're coming for the dog. But the fact that the dog is in that right-hand corner and you can't see what's behind him, it's now making me think if the shadowy creature is maybe death coming for the owner, maybe the poster is like the dog is guarding the owner and is trying to make sure the hands don't get him or anything. But yeah, the shadowy creature, the mud or whatever, ends up fully covering the owner, and the owner says, I have to stay here. And I was thinking, at this point, Todd knows he can't get treatment and is probably going to die, so maybe it's that he's dying at this point in the cave and doesn't want his dog to see it. I think he tells the dog, you need to I wish I could remember, we just watched it too, if the owner says you need to stay here or you need to go. I don't remember, but then the owner's gone and he's gone the rest of the movie, which is only a couple minutes left anyway, and then it's suddenly daytime. And actually, I think you see him on the bed, because you at one point you see a duplicate of the guy and he's in bed and his eyes are closed and he's bleeding, and I'm thinking like, okay, he's dead too, kind of like how the dog had been dead. Yeah, because the owner dying throughout the movie, I feel like kind of makes sense. And eventually it's kind of creepy. Once you finally sort of see the owner's face, it's when he's noticing there's weird stuff going on. Because I thought, oh, the movie takes the perspective of the dog. So maybe it's... I thought it was going to be like Courage the Cowardly Dog, where all the shadowy things and monsters and stuff weren't maybe real or something. I mean, they are in Courage the Cowardly Dog, but I guess maybe the dog's imagining things that aren't as scary or whatever. That's always how I assumed Courage the Cowardly Dog kind of was, even though, the monsters can interact with the owners and that. But then once the owner's seeing the spooky stuff in this too, Todd, you're thinking like, oh shit, these things are... That's kind of the confirmation these might actually be real. Oh man, what was I going to say? I don't remember. That's okay. But yeah, this was a scary movie for me anyway. My friends were also kind of not... I mean, I don't feel like I was as jumpy as I expected. I think because the horror, like I said, it's in a way where it's like things that are kind of on screen and it keeps you on your toes. So it made me feel a little bit anxious and a little scared at times, but not as scared as I thought I would be. But everyone else was also a little on edge as well. So I feel like because the thing is, it's like 11:30. I haven't showered yet. I feel like I can't watch this and go to bed. Not that I'm gonna have like nightmares about this or anything. I think it's more so I want to get it off my mind. I need to like watch something happy, which is why I almost wish that my movie order had been switched if I had known or something. Because this was kind of a little scary and just this movie is just kind of more, I think, depressing than scary, if anything. And I feel like with the movie Love Bites, because I watched that right before this, I need that now, where it's like the silly dumb rom-com about the vampire, and that could take my mind off of things. But it is also too late for me to watch a movie anyway. But yeah, I'm gonna say this, I don't know if I'm happy that I watched this or not, to be honest with you. On one hand, it was very well made, and that made it enjoyable in a sense that I could appreciate it. And I thought it was a good movie, but at the same time, I never want to watch it again. And I felt stressed watching it, which made it not fun to watch. Not to the point where I was like uncomfortable and I needed to leave, but I thought like, oh man, like I wouldn't pick this for myself to watch unless it was out of curiosity. Cause like I said, it was someone else's pick, which I'm not even upset about. I'm actually glad I watched this, but it's also just kind of like a, whew, that was rough. Yeah, I'm gonna say that if you're a pet owner, I feel like this movie would probably hit harder for you, but that's just my experience. I'm glad I at least watched this with friends. I've noticed whether I watch movies that are bad or kind of depressing, because I made the choice. I didn't know it was going to be like that when I first joined my movie group of picking Life of Chuck. I thought it was a musical. Not a musical like musical theater, but the trailers made it seem happier and more interesting than it was, and it was instead very depressing, and everyone else agreed it was depressing, and I felt really bad about that. That one was easier to get through. This one was just kind of more scary than anything, but I feel like having my friends when I'm watching a movie is helpful, especially when the movie's bad. But with this one, it was that everyone was kind of just silent, and I'm so used to us chattering and whatever, that made the movie more scary in a way. It's like the feeling if you go to a movie with someone and neither of you say anything the whole time or look at each other or acknowledge each other, and it's like you're kind of suffering through it together. Yeah. But I can say I can recommend this. I think it's a good movie. I think it's well made. I think it's good as a horror movie. I don't really want to watch horror movies like this again, but I think it was probably good for me to kind of dip my toes. That's the phrase I was thinking of earlier. Yeah, dipping my toes in a horror. I think it was probably good for me to get a taste of something I wouldn't normally go to see. I'm glad I didn't see this in a theater. I don't think I would have, but I feel like this would be 10 times scarier in a theaters. Not like this is like the scariest movie I've ever seen or anything. I'm not gonna have nightmares from this. I think it's just more of the anxiety of watching it. I'm still kind of just feeling it, and this movie I think is more depressing than scary. I thought the dog, Indy, did really well. I think it was one of the awards ceremonies. I think it was the Golden Globes. I think Indy got an award. I don't really remember, and now I understand why. I mean, I hadn't really seen the human performances from that year, I don't think, but the dog did really good. I've never seen a movie where it's a dog main character and it's just one dog. I mean, there's dog movies. There's like Air Bud and stuff for like the ones with the puppies where they kept using different dogs. I'm not sure if it was just one dog that was used for this movie. I thought so based on the credits. I mean, maybe it was two, because there was two dogs in the movie, character-wise. But the dog did really well. It made me feel like this dog is a character, and this is his story, rather than like, oh, this is just a dog they're telling to like look left or whatever. Hopefully you get my point with that. But I thought the dog did very well. Yeah, this is definitely a movie that kind of keeps you on your toes. I feel like if anything, I wouldn't just need to hypothetically watch it a second time to understand the story and stuff. I feel like if I understood it more, I'd probably have even more of a greater appreciation for this movie. But also to kind of just spot all the little details and stuff. This movie is so detailed, and that was something I felt was also really cool. I also just want to say really quick before I end this, the soundtrack to this was really good too. Like I said, I don't really watch or play a lot of horror stuff. I feel like I've played more kind of spooky-ish games than watching stuff. In terms of what I gravitate towards, and I was thinking as I was listening to the movie of like, this feels like music that would be in a horror game. And then I remembered I was, watching a horror movie. So the soundtrack was good. There's a lot of times in the movies where it's sort of quiet too, and I think that really also adds to suspension as well. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on Good Boy. I know I didn't really... I feel like it's hard to describe because like things are happening throughout the movie. But I feel like because I didn't understand the story, but also because a lot of it is just kind of like the dog is staring at something and you see what it's staring at and there's nothing, and then something pops up and then it goes to the next thing. The movie is a lot of that, so I feel like it makes it hard to kind of describe or recap. But I'd recommend watching this by yourself, which I feel like this is a movie you could watch alone, you could watch in a movie theater, you could watch with your friends, you could watch this in any way, honestly. But I'd recommend like a good sized screen, because you really need to be able to, like, something kind of wide. to really be able to catch stuff. And I'd recommend, if you're watching this, make sure you have control of the remote, because you're probably going to have to like pause some things on screen, or you'll be like, oh, what was that, and then have to like go backwards a little bit, because my group having the ability to do that, I think that was very helpful, because sometimes there were like a thing on screen at like the shadow person would pop up or whatever, or something that I would miss. And I think that's the thing I admire the most about the movie, is just being able to catch those details and the type of horror it's going for, really. I think it's really cool. All right, thanks for watching. Bye bye.